Okay. Sounds like that's working fine. Okay, so. So let's start again as committed and merged. And then we're going to move forward with this because this is way too long on the outside. Both sides of the integration should have specs and on tracking. Okay, we're just going to be one massive commit. This isn't something I should be doing this way. I need to be cleaning things up. Why are you there? Oh, they were added. New specs. For pulling apply item associations. No tracking version seems to be. Okay, so let's push this. It's time to merge this in. There's too much stuff outlying. So the goal of today is to start fresh, get a plan together of what comes next in terms of the UI, the behavior, etc. So I'm going to try and start on a solid ground as such. This is not going to be tiny. 165 files, yeah. But I think it's at a point where this can be merged into dev. I think I'm happy that it's going forward. I'll wait for the unit test to pass. So a lot of changes to get PrimeNG in there, but it is definitely working. Not worried about this merge yet. In general, some extra tests, so there's some stability in the code. Some extra unit testing components. So actually, that's one. Ooh, unit test failed. Let's run them on the machine and see what fails. Hey, Daughter, how you doing? How are things? When prejudice associated with planning on view application. So that is because I've removed the behavior. I thought I ran these tests yesterday. So this is when project is associated with planning item. We expect to see a delete. Handle update associated projects command. Remove currently associated projects. Should get that. Associated projects by planning ID spec returns empty array. That shouldn't return empty array, should it? Freedom DAO, welcome in. How you doing? Is Angular like a GUI? Angular is the UI components of this application. So it's the framework for client side. So the framework that allows me to build, he says, with confidence as nothing's running. The framework that allows me to build the application, the front end of the application rather. So there's two libraries at play here. Angular is allowing me to do all the coding, to do the behaviors, etc., and put the components in the page. Yeah, you can use Python. This is hooked up to an API. It's not. There's no server and client in here. It's all merged. It's not all merged in. So yeah, you can use whatever backend you want. But this is a PrimeNG is the library that I'm using for getting the display and the components right now. So there's a few things at play here. So I don't know why they default to light when I've got dark mode set. So PrimeNG is the controls, and then Angular is the coding framework. So this is all the Angular code. So it uses TypeScript. Do you like coding with it long term? Is it stable? And do you have any link to the project I can get? Do I like coding with it? Yes, I've used it for the past 8 years or so, Angular. I'm not a big front end guy, so it's not something that I am. I would call myself expert level at, but I'm competent, able to put things together. It's very stable. AngularJS was originally created in. I mean, those libraries came up in response to things like jQuery, but AngularJS. Yeah, Angular 2 came out around 2015, 2016, so it's very stable, and we're on Angular 18 right now. And any link to the project I can get. This project is an open source. This project is something I'm building as an actual product, so I don't have any code to share for this one. But there is plenty of VODs on YouTube if you want to see how I've done things, built the UI, etc. And I'm always happy to answer questions and kind of dig into a little bit more if it helps you get up and learning. So Angular uses TypeScript. So it has class files and whatnot. So the typical component looks like a class file that is the code behind, and then the view code. There's 3 big or major Spark frameworks: Vue, React, and Angular. No particular order. Yeah, there's lots of little. There's lots of frameworks these days. I was using mostly all GUIs. Well, I mean, everything's a GUI. What libraries have you been using? Material design, okay. Angular will feel friendly there. Oh, so you're doing cross-platform stuff, okay. I haven't heard of this one, right? Kiwi. Python app development framework. Nice. Probably because it's in the Python space, I haven't heard of it. Yeah. So that's similar to things like can't remember the name of it right now. Gotcha. Electrons, that stuff. Yeah. So yeah. But I like using Angular. If I was doing cross-platform dev, if I was actually doing like dev for the actual operating system, I'd probably right now I'd probably still use Flutter. I kind of like Flutter, but this is intended to be a web application, so it's fine. Okay, what was I doing here? Oh yeah, so this is wrong. when project is associated with a planning item. So the reason this is I changed the view code yesterday. Basically, what I was doing is I was trying to figure out, oh, well, is it already associated? Is it not associated? And then when it comes to the view, it doesn't matter. Wipe out everything and re-add everything. It's fine, because we're setting the state. This object that we receive here is the current state of the object. Yeah. Nice, I like it, GUI. Is it possible to do a rainbow unicorn theme? I have no idea, but I'm going to say yes. You can do whatever you want to do. There's a lot of theming possibilities. The client side is not something I'm strong at, so it's something that I do out of necessity rather than desire. I kind of prefer to be working on the back end components. So I changed this to do remove currently associated. And it looks like what I'm expecting is that it should be added. So this test is bad because it's not actually clear what the data should be, right? So my test name is throwing me off, right? So this is the measure of an effective unit test, and this is an ineffective unit test. How do you deploy it? Do you use the automated CI/CD? So yeah, I haven't yet deployed this particular application. I'm going to be looking at that in the near future. I do need to do some learning. I've been looking at things like .NET Aspire. So my world is .NET. It has been for many years. But I've been looking at .NET Aspire to see what that does for me. Ultimately, my goal would be I commit it to the repository, get the builds running, and then have it deploy from there. But I'm still looking at my options there. I have had an application that I've built similarly working in Kubernetes, but it's not something that I've continued on for a while, so I need to refresh my memory. So in the coming months, I'm going to have to figure out the deployment story because it's going to be an important one. This application is built as many different components. There's each component of the system gathers data, it's its own API, and then the client is using a GraphQL API for getting the data, so it consolidates all that data through events. So there's a lot of stuff to deal with there. So when a project is associated with planning item, so apply associations. Okay. GraphQL is a it's kind of a query language for data for API. Yeah, query language for your API. So you kind of give it. So if I go to hot chocolate, really, where is it? Oh, banana cake pop. Sorry, hot chocolate is the yeah. So basically, what you do here is I can't demonstrate it right this second because I need to log in and stuff. But basically what you do is you write something like this, right? And on the back end, it will translate that and give you the value. So on the view here, what I end up with is this query object, and it passes me any parameters, etc. Now what it does do when it's hooked up correctly is it allows me to kind of say, okay, well, I only want this data now, right? So from the same endpoint, from the same thing, it will route it to. So when I say get planning items, it actually comes here, right? Planning items, and it allows you to kind of configure what do you want, how do you want it, you can parameterize it, etc. Etc. Yeah. Is a loose form of an API, checks it, can serve the requested data, makes the API very flexible. Hey Captain Fubar, how you doing? It is Friday, thank goodness. But one of the benefits it does have when it's wired up properly is it actually allows me to, it's not doing it currently, but it does allow me to even flex the query that executes. So if I don't ask for data, I never make that query, so the queries are a bit lighter. It also means that I can kind of, instead of having a different endpoint for every single type of data that I might want, if I want planning items, but then I want details for planning items, I can ask for planning items in one query that is just a list of name and description, and then in a further query I can just add on, oh, and I want all this extra data. So I can flex how much data I want without actually creating new endpoints on the server side. So it is quite powerful in that respect. So yeah. Okay, so let me fix this one. So the problem here is actually that this needs to go there, that needs to go there. Really? Yeah, that should work, right? Yeah, that does work. I mean, I'm just not paying attention to syntax today. So that call never happens. Let's fix this unit test. So when project is already associated with a planning item. Again, I'm flexing this test a little bit in the wrong way. It's not really useful, because what I'm going to do is verify that I remove it and then add it, even though it exists. That should pass now. Yeah. I probably want to review that later. What is today's goal? So the first goal is to get this merge done so that I've got a solid development branch. Now rather than doing this continued stretch development on a single branch, that's not going to help me in the long term if I've got thousands and thousands of changes. So get off this branch because I've clearly introduced PrimeNG, and then focus on the extra data that I need for the planning item screen. So the requirements. And also probably I'm thinking of laying out the screen a little bit differently, but we'll experiment with that. And I'll show you once it's merged. Yeah. So I need to move forward with the UI, right? So I need to get this to back where it was, or at least for the functionality it was at, and then kind of talk about, you know, what's next. How do I lay out other things? Am I capturing the data correctly? I'm happy with this way. This UI works for me. I think it's very clear. Maybe a bit of iconography might be necessary in the end. Like this should be highlighted as being, you know, you need to work on this, but yeah, I'm not going to panic about that yet. Test for view update of. So yeah, I took the approach I took on the view side of this is basically when I get the event to say, hey, here's the current state of the planning item, I just wipe out the existing associations and re-add them all based upon that. So let's push that change. Interesting. So while that's pushing and the unit test are building, so the change I made yesterday was, again, and I kind of put it in Discord. This query, what I learned was the context that this gets. So it is a different context. So the context in the the actual the domain service and the context that this gets are separate contexts, but it caches that context essentially, so it's pooled. What that meant was it also doesn't update when I remove those things, but it does update on an add. I'm not sure, or it identifies additions, but it doesn't identify deletions. So what I did is I added no tracking to this spec, and what that does is it forces a query every single time, right? It also keeps it lighter, right? There's no need for me to have tracking on this query anyway, because I'm using it for data. So if I standardize around the concept that all specs for integration events should be no tracking, then I will not have that inconsistency again. I could experiment if I wanted to do a bit more learning. So when I set up the context, I do set up a pooled DB context. And again, it's a pooled DB context. It's not just the connection, it's an actual pool of context, so it doesn't keep swapping in and out memory all the time, right? I think that was introduced as part of the Blazor changes originally. But it does, I could have swapped that out and maybe seen a different behavior. If I'd have switched to something that actually, if I'd have just switched to DB context, then maybe it would have just handed me a fresh context every time and I wouldn't have seen that behavior. So it's an interesting challenge for certain, and one that I will be mindful of going forward. So basically, if I say every integration event, if I have a spec for an integration event, it should have a no tracking, then I will avoid that issue going forward. So that was it was bugging me after stream, and I typed in random stuff into Gemini until I got an answer. Okay, so let's have a look at this. Let's make sure this is passing. Pull requests. That's all passing now. Oh yeah. I put some branch protections on because I shared the code base with another person, just so they could have a look through and learn. But to make sure that I don't have any issues with that, I did that. So merge into development, yeah. So again, I'm doing this to move, keep things moving forward. Okay, so now let's check out Focus Guy, development, check out. A lot of changes in this one. And update. There you go. $180 files in 12 commits. Okay, so let's also my JetBrains is changing space. Space is where I'm tracking current workload stuff. Although I've been off that for a couple of weeks because I've been working on this PrimeNG. They're getting rid of a lot of functionality from it because they've realized that people just don't want it. Yeah, I set 24th of May. I started that on or around the 17th of May, so it's taken me about 3 weeks to get that done. And I haven't even done what I actually set out to do with it, so that's awesome. That was productive. There you go. So add the library, remove Tailwind, update controls and components to use PrimeNG or deprecate functionality that is not unnecessary because of provided controls. Okay, so we've done that one. No, this is being backlogged. That will be too much work and too much faffing around at the client side. So the goal is ultimately when I get to when I actually get to the final version. So planning is the first component, because it's the component that gives me the most how do I put it? It gives me the biggest opportunity to demonstrate all the features I'm trying to promote here, right? Again, this tool is not meant for, it's not aimed at being for developers. It's aimed at being for management to allow them to keep track of things. Still deep in regular job work stuff, so I wish you best of all and good progress. Kenny, thank you very much for the look. I do appreciate that. So this should load. Oh no, that's just loading GraphQL. Full stack. That worked because all it needs is GraphQL to start up, because it's just querying the data. And if you're new to the stream and you're interested in what I'm doing, you're more than welcome to ask questions. I'm happy to show the technologies in play. I'm happy to talk about the stuff and demonstrate. There are a few libraries that are sorry, I'll read that. There are a few libraries that I've built as part of this project that are open sourced. But yeah. The customer is management, the sponsor is the directors, CEO, etc. I'm surprised you view the customer as management rather than developers. Oh, my end customer. Well, so I've obviously read some of the articles that you've posted, and I've read a few articles. I watched that Nick Chapsas. Sorry, that sounds real. I say his name in a very odd way there. How to put it? If you look at tools like Jira, the majority of the actual functionality is not for developers. It's not. We don't, coming back around on the whole task thing, as developers, we kind of like to know what we need to work on and go and work on it, right? So all this is aimed at gathering those requirements, right? It's aimed at trying to get the information the developers need to hand that off effectively to them. So most of the functionality I have is, or the most of the functionality on the build is to try and provide the tools for management so that they don't have to bother the developers, and developers can get on with the work they need to do. You know, things like the review dates, things like the information, the review stuff. This is all for management and product management and upper management to be able to see these things without actually having to ask a developer or worry about a developer having to keep track of these things. Alex, hello, by the way, welcome in. Tables always annoying to deal with for mobile. How do I handle it? So right now, I'm not worrying too much about the responsive design. That is a challenge that I'll have to come up with. The primary design is aimed at, you know, I can see that looks horrible, right? It doesn't work. The primary goal, right? The second is to get the functionality in there, and this isn't going to be even the final UI. If I spend that time trying to work on those refinements, I'm not going to move forward with the features. But obviously this needs addressing. The menu bar would have to go away. The panels would have to become probably cards. There is some stuff built into PrimeNG, I believe, for doing that, but I'm not utilizing that right this second. And this is a data view. So, but again, the usage of this application isn't aimed at being a mobile app. It's meant for this sort of work. So I will probably create specific mobile views rather than actually creating responsive UI. As a developer, I'd say what we're looking for in software like this is very minimal on our end. Your punning stuff feels like management cell. Yeah, and that's why I'm focusing on it, right? Because if you actually look at the features a developer uses in Jira, the developer actually needs, it is like a minuscule amount of the actual application. So from a development perspective, the questions I'd be asking are, okay, what are you commonly asked to do? What are you frustrated about in that workflow? Because it's all labeled under Agile, right? It's all labeled under, Scrum, etc. Therefore, it must be developer centric, but it's not. It's actually a lot of the focus is on the management side of it. It's like, how much work are you getting done? What's the speed at which you're getting work done? Where are projects? It's all management. Also, as a developer, it'd be nice to have input into the features, and it's a frequent frustration that an executive or someone else takes 100% ownership. A lot of organizations are like that, right? Where they're like, you're the programmer, you do what we ask you to do. Some organizations will embrace that developer feedback, because especially as you become a subject matter expert over the time with the software and the business, you have a unique insight into things that maybe management doesn't. So I've always taken the attitude of it, especially if the business is, if the business is, the businesses that are using the software are how do I put it? I've always championed the developers actually meeting the end customer. In this case, it will be that will be the end customer will be the people using the software to build other software or whatever. But having those conversations can give you insights, and it's always useful to take feedback, no matter where it comes from. Did you build the right thing as a complaint developers will also? The exec understands the business more than I will. I don't think he'll ever build the perfect software. The perfect software is something that is opinion rather than yeah. So let's move some of these. So again, the idea here is this review date. When I come in as a product management member, the idea is that this review date is showing me, oh, by the way, you've actually said you want to review these things by these dates, and they're past due now. So this one, I'm like, oh, well, actually, make the UI look awesome. Oh, well, we're going to defer that for a month. We're going to put that back to June 26th. Let's save that. I'll close that out. This one, initiative showing for info cards for planning progress. So one of the questions I have here is actually, in terms of the UI, the behavior, this isn't a very intuitive piece, right? If I move this back, let's move that back into July, because that's really far out, right? So if you look, that does move it behind there. This says, it was updated, because again, just closing this every time is quite jarring. Also, when I open this, it covers up this part, right? So One Lion kind of suggested maybe having it so that it actually is it's not a fly out over the top. It actually is a panel that is split, and therefore the grid moves over and this panel lives here, but that means that this stays there and I can click down these things. So that's something I want to try and work on, because I think from a usability perspective, that would be much smoother, because if you go in reviewing these things, this is quite a jarring workflow, right? Let's move that back to August. And then let's move that back to, right now there's no, I think actually, no, I have put a rule in. I can't move, if I move these beyond, I can't move them back. So, right. So now I only have current, right? Nothing past due. This is today. That's on the 10th. Yeah, I could create a new item for last week or something, just to create past due work. But they're all now moved out to the upcoming. And again, that window can change as well. Going back to the point on the mobile aspect, again, if I do that sort of thing where this becomes an actual layover, then this UI is completely inappropriate for mobile, right? Because it actually it just can't work. There's no collapsing in the world that's going to help that. So it's I'm a big fan of designing for the intended use, and the intended use for this is definitely a desktop environment. It's not a mobile environment. However, that being said, you still want to potentially allow for users looking at it on mobile. So in this case, it might be a list and a navigation, but it means that I'm going to spend that time, just doing UI and stuff. Overrated God, hello, how you doing? How are things? So that's running. The next challenge is to get in the requirement stuff, the features of the requirements back. So I'm going to keep using. So that's where I started that conversation, right? So the idea is to start with planning, but ticketing and stories will also be a component of the system. And what I want to do is ultimately be able to select which system you're looking at up in this top left-hand corner, right? So there'll be a switcher there, and you switch. Oh, I want to go to stories, and change the color theme of the page. I think that's something though that I do not want to do right this second. So, yeah. Devs, management, QA, UX, all customers. I mean, when you're doing something like this, everyone is a customer, right? Because again, the organization is going to bring in people to and use the tool to collect for. Who do you optimize for? Well, right now, no, accounting doesn't need to use this. Although I've seen Kanban boards in teams that I wouldn't expect Kanban boards. So, yeah. So right now the focus is on that planning, because this tool is intended to be product driven, but involve the developers so that no stories are created without that developer review, right? So the idea is that the developers would look at this with the planner or with the product manager or whatever, review the actual requirements, etc., and define what the actual stories are. So the aim there is to cut down on the amount of fluff that gets added as stories. I've seen stories that read like entire books, but they're a copy and paste of another story because it was too hard to capture the slight difference in requirements between story A and story B, because the developers said, oh, well, that's one story and that's another story. So the requirements get copied to each story, but you don't know which one's doing which, because it's just, or the stories have no definition, or the stories have no requirements, etc. So the aim here is to kind of help drive that process, keep it fresh, keep it, again, use the review date to try and make product management kind of set actual goals and visible goals as well, right? So ultimately, from a reporting perspective, management will be able to see, oh, this product has, 15 items staged, but, the review dates have all expired, right? So we're behind on this, right? You don't have to ask a developer for where we are with that. You don't have to even ask the product team where you are with that. You can see it, you can visualize it. And again, putting those alerts and notifications in the application will provide visibility. Again, taking the load off the developers. The developers can focus on the development and not be focused on, oh, there's a story associated to this planning item. Has it been done yet? Right? They're able to see those things. Okay, so let's go in here. New sprint. Add. Get requirements. Working again. Let's start today and end next week. So I do have a lot of well, not a lot of items now. I do have several items sat in there that do need to be reviewed. But again, I'm kind of focused on getting these features in, right? So this one will be, let's run that again. So if we look at what's a mobbing? Ooh, that's a lot of white screens. So Airtasker, hired skilled people, Dovetail, customer insights platform, updated. OpenAI. I'm not sure how much UI is in OpenAI, but okay. Learn UX design, Hulu. Notion. It's actually a good way to learn about software, like different products out there. This is a pretty good app for that. Project management, Basecamp. Let's have a look at Basecamp. So, creating a new project, right? Prototype. So you click on message board, new message. No, not what I want. What is it? Do I have it saved? Library. That's Monday.com. So this is probably Monday.com is probably the closest thing. I haven't used Monday.com, but it's probably the closest thing to what I'm trying to build. So Monday. Are you using any Agile platform to help you develop this Agile platform? Not really. I'm using Space to track certain things, but it's kind of the irony is that I'm actually doing the things that I don't like doing to develop the software. So I'm kind of doing things on the fly. I'm not keeping track of the work properly. There's the irony is not lost. So that's just filtering though. Monday.com. I'm going to go into creating a new thing, adding a task. Here you go. Adding an update, adding a task. So this is the closest thing if you look at current, upcoming. So this month, next month, however they've done it, right? Status to me there's no need for a status for what I'm doing because the status is all in the review date, right? It's like, it's either here, i.e. it's active and needs to be reviewed, or it's not and it's been completed and you can go and view that separately. So we go a new task. So they just type it in line there. And then add notes. Okay. That's not going to work for me. So when I do a new item, right, this is the bare minimum for adding a planning item, right? So you add a title, description, a review date, who it's assigned to, and which project it's assigned to, right? So that's my flyover, by the way. This one is the actual libraries flyover. So there's a slight difference there in the behavior and design. So what I got to decide is, do I put more information on this? And these buttons, cancel doesn't make sense, to be honest. Unless I make it if I make it a pop out, then do I do instant update, i.e. there's no save button? I just type and then I hit enter and it saves. So many different quirks. But the requirements are the next thing that I need to get in. So do I, create a scroll down the side? Right now that's scrolling from behind, which is the annoying part. That's going to cause a problem for me. But if I move this panel down, is that an effective way? So that's kind of why I'm looking at, what's the Agile one? Is it just Asana that was on? Asana. If you have any questions about what I'm doing, if you are interested in learning more, you're more than welcome to ask. I'm happy to show the technologies, etc. Start a template, create a new project from a template, use a template, all types, team brainstorm. Adding a project brief. Create project brief. Type, okay, done. I'm looking for, let's go back to home, CRM. Zendesk. So flows. Come on. Explore. Adding a ticket. So what I'm trying to decide is, do I do pop-ups? Do I do detail screens? How do I effectively do this? So here we hit add ticket. We're on a new ticket. It's a new screen, but there's a lot of area to work with, right? So that's the design there. When I'm viewing a ticket though, use adding a ticket. Use filtering tickets. Explore. They don't really give you the view there. Because again, what I'm thinking about is, do I keep casual projects or what? This is a casual project. I'm building it with the intention of making it an actual product. So I'm trying to stay as focused on it in that way. So I'm treating it a little bit more like work, without all the constraints. So yeah. Yeah, I wish it was work right now, to be honest. But it's a .NET backend. I've been building it for several months. It uses Kafka to transfer integration events around the system to transfer data, GraphQL for the view, Angular for the front end. some service bus, some mass transit stuff in there as well. So it's very like work. Unfortunately, I don't have any UI UX experts. I don't have any design experts. I don't have any front end experts. So I have to be all things, which makes it even more challenging. Because the back end is where I'm most comfortable. So I'm just trying to, before I start any actual coding or whatever, or messing around, I just want to I'm trying to think about what, before I delve in and make a load of changes. I feel like the biggest challenge is not having another person to ask questions about, etc. Hi, no skills. Yeah. Having a team to work with on this sort of stuff is definitely a positive. It's partially why I stream it, right? I stream it because it allows me to kind of voice what I'm thinking, and even though I don't always get that interaction back, I'm still able to, verbalize the ideas, etc. Why not use it to develop it? It will allow you to develop something you would use yourself. Well, that's the goal, right? The goal is to get to a point where I can dog food it. Robot debugging, yeah. Morning trap, by the way. Yeah, the point is the focus right this second is to try and get it to a point where it is doing enough that I can actually use it to build it. Because again, if I look at, so actually space is probably the good example, right? Because it's something I'm using to track it, right? So space allows me to view an item. You see, it pops out the entire card. It makes this list. It actually just cuts out this list, right? I don't like this design where the chatbots does this, and they're scrapping most of space, by the way. They've been asked for so much stuff that actually involves integrations with other products that they were trying to achieve. They're scrapping a big chunk of space. Best way to update anything, in my opinion, is using it yourself. You realize what's missing, what's unnecessary, and what plain use. Yes, absolutely. And again, the goal is to start using this once it gets to a point where it will capture what I actually want it to do. The challenge is I am not a UI expert. I am not a designer by any stretch of the imagination. So I want to make sure that I'm at least getting to a point where the application is usable, because then I have to figure out the deployment as well, because I have to have a version running. And you're also not necessarily your best. If you build something you would use, I'm not the target audience for this particular product, right? I'm the person I'm trying to save from this type of product, right? Yeah, my expectations of what is good might not be what is good, so I've got to make sure that I'm able to change this and update this. The data capture stuff is the simpler thing, right? The layout, the design, the actual way I capture data, the methods I use, the tools I use, etc. Those are going to matter, but they're not necessarily what I need. So I'm not. Again, this is not being built for developers. This is aimed at trying to save the developer from management nightmares. right? Ultimately, in my world, what I would see is a list of work that the team needs to do, and the team picks the things they're going to work on, and they go off and work on those things, and they don't have to worry about moving it from they'd see the Kanban board in stand-ups, etc., but they wouldn't necessarily have to worry too much more about it than that. They shouldn't need to worry about the planning. They shouldn't need to worry about the notifications, the people caring about where the work is and how fast they're going, etc. All those are concerns that don't matter to the developer, other than, am I getting work done? And we end up with so much stuff that isn't actual work. Yeah, that's common. I mean, it has been common for me for most of my career, where there's more. Now, the first two jobs I had, the first 8 years of my career, were spent in more customer focused roles, because it was something where I was pretty happy to be in that I was interacting with customers directly. What matters most to the dev is probably the product. It should do. It should matter very much to dev, the product. Here's a little design element I would suggest. If something is assigned to you, then make it highlighted in some way. So I'm still playing with the data here, right? So ultimately, this is going to have filters at the top, I believe. And it would default to assign to me, because realistically, you don't care about any other work. If you start using it, you'll discover what's missing, as in features needed. It's literally dev-centric first approach. But again, the features I need might not be the features the application needs. So it's a balance. No, I appreciate the input. I certainly appreciate the input. This is the sort of stuff that I enjoy talking about, because it's, I've developed all the software, but this is pretty much the first time that I've ever tried to tackle something this large on my own. What's missing that doesn't allow you to dog food it? Getting rid of things, completing things. If I start to put the review date notification stuff in there, I've got to manage all the review dates on stuff I use, on stuff I do. So I could end up with a big mess of notifications and things like that. So I'm going to have to keep clearing it out. Also, I haven't got the deployment piece figured out yet. So I'd actually, to be able to dog food it, I have to be able to deploy it, right? Because I can't, that stupid blind. I have to move over to my my right a bit more. I have to be able to deploy the application. You can run it locally at first, right? But I've still got to, if I don't want to break it, I've still got to deploy it in a standalone version that isn't dev. So I have to make sure that I can effectively keep upgrading. As Trap says, I have to be able to make sure I can update it and move it forward. And right now, it's all very flexible. Also, based on what I see, you can make a Teams feature with basically stores multiple people in a team, and instead of assigning to specific people, you can assign it to teams. So teams at the development level, I agree with. From a product management perspective, I'm not sure teams. So again, in the, this would not be invisible to everybody else, right? Again, it's planning, right? Now, maybe there's some way of assigning privacy so that, it stays within a group or whatever later on. But teams aren't really that. The idea of this is visibility. So to put teams in and assign it to a team, I'm not sure that's from a planning perspective that's necessary. It's not the way I've seen things work. up until now, product management has generally been, they're an organization that normally has people assigned to teams or people kind of working on different things. So yeah. But anyway, I need to figure out what I need to figure out right now is if I put requirements back in this page, what happens, right? So let's go and actually have a look. So planning detail looks like this. There is also, let's go planning items, store query. When I load detail for, I also load requirements, right? Got to figure out those as well. So planning item detail does have uh-oh. Do I have any? Now the question is, do I have actually any? I do. Should see new widget. So planning item ID 1 and 2. Planning item ID 1 is new widgets and make progress today. So new widgets has requirements. And make progress today has requirement. There you go, object, okay. Object, okay. So I kind of lean back into that world of like update. Why is Restream bot being terrible? Never posted that message to Twitch. Again, I'm worried about making this busy. Because requirements are, if I tab it, etc. I don't think Jira's in mobbing. I think I kind of figured this out last time. Yeah, Jira's not in mobbing. Product. Manage teams, work, projects, and tasks. It's kind of similar to the flow Monday. Monday.com is probably the closest in terms of idea. Monday seems to have all the things. So they kind of focus around this task list style, which is probably much the closest. But again, I don't like the inline edit. That's not tackling. It's not tackling more detailed data. Is my problem. So when they do replying to an update, they've got so they kind of do the overlay thing the same way I'm doing it there. And again, you can see the mobile friendliness of this collapses. Yeah. So I'm just worried about dumping a lot of stuff down here. Now I could make this bigger, but I don't know if that buys me anything, right? I don't think that gives me any more value. Also, I need to be able to edit requirements or add requirements. And requirements, right this second, are a title and a description, but they're going to be way more, right? They're going to be attachments and things like that. Because the idea is that what you're saying, okay, well, here's the planning item, here's the kind of concept that I'm going for. The product team shouldn't be worrying about how it aligns to a specific set of code. They should be more worried about what do they actually want to see. And that's kind of why I'm doing it this way, because what I've experienced so far is that they kind of, after a while of working with developers, they kind of try and align their stories to fit what they think the developers will need. And oftentimes that ends up with them either trying to dictate, whether deliberately or otherwise, they dictate, or they think they're dictating, oh, here's how I want this to work, and here's this screen, and we should update it, we should use this code from here. And I want to avoid that. I want to allow them to just kind of visualize what they're aiming for, and then have the conversation later about how the requirements break down and stuff. So the requirements themselves will be a little bit more in depth than just can fit here, or even with a scroll down. So do I make it so that this is the quick view, and then you can view more detail? I'm thinking that's the right way to do it. Because then you're able to acceptance criteria versus acceptance test requirements at the end. Acceptance criteria. To me, the requirements come with what do they want to see. So it kind of is acceptance criteria as such. Only full stack devs need to see it all. Because it's these parts that are hard to get out of PMs, right? They can type a massive amount of text up here, right? And be like, okay, well, there should be a bunch of widgets everywhere. And right. So they're happy to do that, but then where do they expect to see it, right? So I want to see, okay, well, I should see a dashboard selection. I should see and here's my mock-up. I should see an alert notification when something's updated. I should see all sorts of stuff, right? So the idea is to try and get them to coax out those as requirements, and they can attach screenshots to the requirements, and then those can be used by the developers when they sit down with the PM to say, okay, well, that's actually one story, that's another story, and then you'll be able to select them and split them off as actual stories and pull the requirements and the screenshots through, etc. I learned something lately also. You can negotiate in terms of scope or time, but you cannot claim ownership of both. You can negotiate in terms of scope or time, but you cannot claim ownership of both. Where did you learn that? Or in the context of... If you want a feature, you can either choose to define what it is or how long it takes. I was asking general questions in a forum, and they said that is what is decreed at some company. If you want a feature, you can either choose to define what it is or how long it takes. I'm not sure how I feel about that one. I mean, ultimately, again, what I'm not trying to focus on here is the time of anything, right? When I've run into problems, I was both getting defined the how and the how long. Well, yeah. I have a general problem with being told by somebody else how long something should take. I don't like procrastinating, but in the same, I don't like being told, "Oh, I expect this by, Friday," when they don't understand what it is to do it, right? Um, do Y next time and they start to do it. If I'm that constrained, it can cause major issues. Yeah. So again, what I'm focused on here is kind of pulling those actual expectations out of PMs, right? Actually allowing them a space that is not focused on their work to try and define the work. So the developers can sit down with them before actual stories get created and then be able to say, okay, well, this goes across there and this goes here. This is a story, etc. Yeah, and PMs definitely shouldn't be defining how something should be done. It, developers can be their worst enemy, their own worst enemies, because most developers I've met are keen to impress and keen to achieve. So what will happen is if someone says to me now, right, go and add a feature to calculate average reviewed, you know, an average of the number of times a review date is changed or something like that, right? So the basically calculate how often we actually do something before it's reviewed, etc. I may say, oh, well, that's simple. We'll just do this and this and this and this, and we publish this event and do that. I shouldn't voice that. I should never voice that unless I'm in my team, right? Because because realistically what you're doing is you're actually thinking out loud. You're not actually doing the work, but you're thinking about the pieces that you know about. And that's often an enemy, especially shared in a planning meeting. So my advice, if you are in a planning meeting, never, ever start actually planning the development at the same time as you're planning the actual work. Those planning meetings should always be about asking questions and understanding what is expected versus actually promising delivery of anything. And I think that's where a lot of developers fail. So I oftentimes try to protect developers from themselves and say, shut up. Because then when PMs pick up on that, they start to learn some of that as you grow as a team, as you grow with that relationship, you end up with PMs that are like, oh, well, it's just this feature. We did that there. And then you have to disappoint them and say, well, no, it feels the same, but it's not the same. It calculates this field differently, or it does this thing differently. Um, um, and if they start to expect timelines, that's a challenge because you get different experiences. So all that being said, I need to actually get some development done. I'm starting to think that I don't want to display those requirements there. So the requirements, by the way, will look like this. At for let requirement of requirements. Is it in or of? It's definitely not that. I get used to that syntax. It's always tough bridging technical and business gaps. Anyway, anyhow, off to work. Good luck. Delta, thank you very much. Have a great day at work, and I'll see you around. I'm gonna do this now. Either way, I don't want to do that right this second. I want to roll back. I think I want to do a different screen though. I think I want to. The problem is that it's got value to show it in this thing because of requirements. Maybe not. So I don't know if anyone has seen Jira. Jira has a problem in general with very busy screens, in my opinion. Again, most of what I'm looking at here, it just shows how managey it is. Right, so you click on one of these and it does expand out, which is a good feature, right? This expansion is good. But what tends to happen is you click on a card here and it shows the panel down here, but none of these are really demonstrating just how busy this can actually get. And that's kind of my concern. There you go. You click on that and it actually, in this case, it actually opens up a wider thing, but it's got all this stuff. So this is kind of what I'm looking at, right? The activity, attachments, description, this is collapsible attachments, but description. So this is close to this, right? So if I broke this further out and moved some of these things up there, right? So assigned user and review date definitely would live up there. Associated projects, maybe. And then everything else could live under here. But again, it's, do I really want to do that? And also, can I make that an actual panel in the page? Miscellaneous menu panels. Nested vertical size style. Because that would be the ideal form, wouldn't it? Instead of, so let's do this. Let's create this story so I can actually build this out. Let's go here, general work, display. Why do you hate to be asked about how much time you need to complete a task? Because you don't know all the time. There's all manner of things that can go into it, and it becomes you either deliver or you miss by a mile because you end up with other things that come up. You don't know every intricacy. So the more you're asked to do, the harder that gets. Depends. Some organizations do set deadlines, and you kind of expected. Sometimes you're asked how long will it take, and it's why pointing in Scrum it's a useful metric. Yeah. What I don't, and it depends on what we define as a task, right? If it's, hey, can you go and add this button on this page to call this thing, right? If I understand all the requirements, how long do I need? Then maybe it is a simple thing, but I don't want to specify, oh, that'll take me 20 minutes, or oh, that'll take me an hour. Regardless, even if it seems simple, because it might not be simple. It might be, it has data dependencies. It might be that it has a navigational issue. It might be all sorts of things that I don't take into account at that point. And we oftentimes do get comfortable in the code enough to kind of get a good feeling, but that's why pointing is around, right? That's why points are, and we've kind of debated this a little bit in Discord. You know, points, if used effectively, are kind of a good measure for management about, okay, I think this will take them a while, but it stops the developer from being forced to give an actual timeline. Because, in some places it becomes a deadline, right? I need an hour. Oh, and then they're on you. Like, well, why have you got this done yet? Right? I feel we do our worst work when we are rushed to do it, or feel that we have to achieve it by a time. So, yeah. So I don't like being asked how much time something will take, because the amount of time you spend qualifying as well can be a problem. Like for work for me right now, I'm not an expert in the system. I haven't seen a lot of the code. So if I'm asked, oh, we need to fix this problem, how long do you think it'll take? I don't like that, because I don't know what I'm going to find when I look at the code. I don't know how to navigate the code. So my time is very inaccurate. It's only an estimate, and people are different. Some are faster on others on Y, others on X. Asking how long you estimate is only benefiting you seems more related to accountability, as in working at a place where you're literally held accountable. But it's not. Some people take it as an estimate. Some people take it as an expectation, and that's the problem, right? Accountability, saying, it will be 3 hours is not helpful if I'm wrong, right? I would rather say, okay, I'll look at that and we'll point it as this, or I need a bit of time to spike and figure out what that code does to give you any more accurate estimate, right? Which in some organizations is fine. Time is always going to be focused on, though. I get why time matters. What I don't like is being asked in a planning meeting and having developers provide those deadlines without talking to the rest of the team, right? What I don't like is being held to those timelines. And because, again, if you make developers feel that they've got to rush, they'll rush, and the code will reflect it. So, that's why Scrum kind of works in the terms of it allows for accountability in so much as the team agrees to take a certain amount of points. If the business or the group feels that they're not challenging enough, they're not pushing hard enough to progress, then that's allowed for, right? You can push back and say, well, are you being a little bit easy on yourselves, right? Are you being too quick? Yeah, it does make dysfunction more visible because you can see the cheats. Well, people like to talk as well. The stand-ups can derail everything. But the team should be allowed to go off and say, okay, well, we think it's going to take this long, right? So internally, right, if I say, again, if I bring you and Dota onto this project right now, my timelines are going to be way quicker than yours, because even now there's a lot to learn, right? There's a lot of technology, there's a lot of stuff. If we're asked by a product manager, oh, how long do you think it'll take to get requirements on the screen, right? You have no idea. You haven't seen the stack. Dota's seen some of it, but there's a lot to take in. You don't take all that in a stream. So I'm going to say, oh, well, that'll take about 3 hours. That becomes the expectation. So then you go and pick it up, and it takes you a week to understand what the code does before you actually get to the point where you're actually comfortable to add that piece. So if that conversation is going to happen, that conversation of how it's done and why it's done, etc., should happen offline, and no expectation be provided to the product team at that point, right? Yeah. And they just don't trust things. So that I would love to work in an environment that is us, right? A team that is focused on building the best product. But unfortunately, because of expectations for goals, for bonuses, right? It becomes a them and us, and that's never helpful in that environment. So, if you want to be as vague as possible when you're talking to external resources, external to the development team, and then the development team should have honest conversations and set realistic expectations. So again, if we're in a planning meeting, a pointing meeting for just us as developers, and I say that'll take about 3 hours, so we'll point that off 2, right? But you go, whoa, I've never seen this code before, right? Then that's a pairing opportunity for the first point. That shouldn't actually be anything different. And supposed to be transparent, though. There's no lack of transparency. There's just honest conversation that stops those conversations going outside, and again damaging the credibility, so that you're relaying a message that is consistent for the team. So the team doesn't look like they have no idea what they're doing. The team understands it. Actually, we're going to make the story different. Replace overlay with side panel for project details. Anyway, it's time off to work for real. Good luck. Take care, Doctor. Have a great day. Hello, Hades. How you doing? Welcome back. The overlay is nice, but it limits the amount of visible information able to be provided. Place the overlay with a panel, collapsible. I'm doing it. Thanks. How you? I'm good. I'm good. I've made some progress. Got over some humps this week with the coding stuff, and able to move forward on the UI design. I would agree. If you need to answer without having been able to talk and check, not good. I didn't think about that situation. Yeah, and it's consistency matters in how you deliver to the product team, right? Again, like Dota mentioned, credibility. You want to make sure that you're relaying the right message, and that the right people are learning where they need to learn, and don't feel obliged to deliver, right? Because if I say 3 hours in a meeting and someone picks that story up, that expectation has been set, but I might not pick up the story. But the expectation is 3 hours. So it's making sure that we can have a conversation. And again, if you were working on this project with me, you wouldn't say 3 hours. because you have no idea how it works. Let's say it's day one, right? So that's an opportunity for you to sit down, even if you've seen bits of the code, or you think, oh well, that's simple. It's just adding a button. That'll take about 3 hours, right? You shouldn't ever say that in a meeting that is with other groups. That's worth talking about offline, and making sure the development team can train where necessary and share that knowledge. It's kind of like why I do like points as a concept. The problem is that points often lose meaning. They're not reviewed. Replace the overlay with a collapsible planet that loads the current details when the row is clicked. Fix the fact that the row isn't clickable. The link is right now. Okay, so let's do that. Let's do T78. So check out, no, new branch. Feature / T78, replace overlay with panel. What's that? We don't need that. So what we're looking to do here, let's see if we can actually do it. Okay. Prime NG. Oh, why? I've got it open on another screen and you're still doing that. So what I'm looking to do, not a tab view. Tab view would be helpful as well, but I think there's more. So this is splitter. Size. When no panel size is defined, panels are 50-50. Do you have a collapsible one though? Divider, that's just a... That's fine. Field set, panel. Dock. No. Panel menu, no. Miscellaneous. Nice. Sidebar. Template. Headless. See, this is what I want. Let's have a play. Let's see what we can do. So we go to the code over here. Because of the way this works, we can leave the entire application stack running. We can modify the UI and not have to worry about rebuilds. So right now, what happens is the planning items is the screen we're getting to. This is the grid. And then we have the planning detail here. So what we need to do, and planning item detail itself is a P sidebar. So this is where this is about to change. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get rid of the P sidebar. So this becomes a component that is loadable. And now over in planning items component. By the way, pardon my English, I'm dyslexic. You might need to fill in some gaps when I write. No worries about Blob. No need to apologize whatsoever there. I've had no issues with what you've written. I appreciate the conversation. Building something like this is. So I've been a developer for 25 years professionally. I've worked at several organizations. I've worked in different groups, completely different products. I've been doing Agile and Scrum stuff for the past 14 years, maybe. Or attempting. I'll say attempting, because I don't believe anybody that I've seen so far actually does Agile and Scrum effectively. I think everyone has their dysfunction. But it's good to take on the opinions of other people and get the feedback, and it's a benefit of the stream, right? I get to ask the question, and if people want to provide their perspectives and their experiences, it allows me to understand other people's challenges, other people's problems with what it is they're doing. So I'm always happy to talk about this stuff. I'm always happy to learn more. And even if I have to think, just being asked a question can allow me to think about something very differently. So yeah, so what we're going to do is we're going to introduce the P splitter. P splitter. We had a uni project where we developed an Agile platform, so most of my inputs are quoting the questions we were subject to. Nice. Mr. Jones, afternoon. Why are you splitting peas? It's fun. I can. Panel sizes. Let's have a look. Equals 8 to 20. Was that actually an array then? It was. 8 to 20 in sizes. So is that actual 1 just 10? So I'm going to do that. So that goes around that. And then this one goes in ng template, d template. At this point, I'd make this grid, this actual data component, an actual separate component to make this more readable. We're going to work this out first. So it doesn't matter. Okay, so it doesn't matter what we do there. So then we do ng template, p template, and then we have app planning item detail. This is going to be broken. Planning items component 59. That's because detail doesn't exist. Let's just do that works exactly as I intended. $60.40. That's there though. Well, is planning out in detail with detail. That's exactly what I did. Do I have to? Oh, tell me I have to have that defined earlier in the page. That would be terrible. Let's do it this way. So we do viewChild detail is planning item detail one. Then we do this dot planning item detail dot open ID. I built okay. So this is the behavior that actually one line was asking for last week almost, because what's happening here now is that I'm able to click on one of these and it loads this up instantly, right? So it's not messed up. So now I have the option of doing that, right? The problem is I don't want it there when detail isn't loaded. So let's see if we can do this. Can I do if so what I'm doing here is still gotta get used to some of the Angular behavior, the Angular features. So the problem is the item is visible. I have is visible, I think. Yeah, I have is visible. So I can use that. Dang it. So it doesn't change the template afterwards. Can I do no, because that's essentially the same thing, right? If I change that to min sizes, how does that change that? 100. Is this percentages? Is what I'm trying to figure out. No. Minimum size of the elements relative to 100%. Okay. Seventy 30. That doesn't look like that's taking up the space, is it? Why is that? Hold on. So this is the most basic version. Style. So again, if I remove them, what changes? Absolutely nothing. The problem is that's not going to be as effective, right? So I can have the panel there, I just don't need to show the data, but I think it's going to take up the space. Cannot read properties of undefined if opened. But that just worked. Oh, I'm an idiot. If this is defined, then define this. That's a no-win. Did I hear there's UI going on here? Hey, Salisbury, how you doing? There's an attempt at UI. Right, the second I'm trying to do this, so I'm trying to build this UI out here where I'm able to click on these items and see the detail down this panel, and then ultimately use this space a little better. I kind of like the overlay though. The overlay was so much cleaner, but this is a more usable interface. The problem is, oh, that works really well, doesn't it? Boop. Hey, Erin, how you doing? Welcome in. The problem is that I've got to kind of decide. I want to expand this, and when I click on one, then load this out. I'm just not sure if that's possible. If detail is loaded, let's do that. Let's go in here. How do I do a get? It's like a draw. I'm gonna look a bit the whole of the back. No worries, Salisbury. I appreciate it. Thank you. Hope you are able to be productive today. Thank you. Oh, absolutely. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do get detail is loaded is a boolean, and that's going to return this dot and I mean, that might be the net result of the same thing, but we'll find out. Yeah. I was wondering how developers, programmers archive their work, save it for long-term storage. And hindsight, I'm kind of glad I cancelled today. I slept really badly for some reason. I think I would have cancelled anyways. No worries. How they develop, how they archive that, save the work for long-term storage. That's something I've actually thought about a lot. Right now, this is all in GitHub. So if this was to go away, if the GitHub went away, I'd have a problem. I mean, the way code develops today, more permanent levels of storage, I'm not sure would be useful. If you get an SD card or you get a USB stick, etc., that memory degrades over time. I mean, I have thrown things on USB sticks before. I've burnt code to CDs in the past. But for right now, I rely on GitHub being there. I could distribute it to us. Like I could start a GitLabs account and have it distributed there as well in a private repo. That would give me the ability to have multiple repos, but then I'd have to be responsible for pushing that. What are your thoughts, Erin, on that? So this is the same problem, right? I've got a chicken and egg, right? I don't know the details loaded until the details loaded, so I can't build it based upon this. I've set up Gittier and autosync to my own setup. So you have a storage drive, and you have a Gittier is the kind of self-deploy Git server, right? Yeah. Yeah, you have. Yeah. Pretty nice. Thanks for the answer. I'm an archivist, not a developer, so I was wondering how you guys do it. Yeah, I mean, I think the problem is the what are you actually archiving at this point? Because the code evolves so quickly, we change so much so often. We kind of rely upon Git being it, and maybe long-term storage. I turned him onto it despite never using it. Yeah, you see these things in day to day, right? And you're like, oh well, you could use that. Forgeo. Huh. Yeah, I haven't looked at those options. But yeah, long term archiving of code. I mean, I remember tape backups and stuff, right? We'd have our application code all archived, etc., on tape backups. I think because Microsoft backed GitHub, I think you'd find a lot of developers would pretty much rely on GitHub these days, as kind of being one of those platforms that just isn't going away. There's too much investment. But then again, SourceForge was around for years, right? Well, SourceForge is still around. But actual physical storage mechanisms for code, I just don't see the benefits of long-term storage of code like that anymore. That's what I want to show my grandchildren. Oh, when we used to use actual keyboards and mice and not just tap our brains in. Look at this. I used to write this stuff. This is not what I want to do. But let's. I'm trying to prove something, and it's going to end up being the solution, which is what am I doing? Mixing my languages. Sorry, I can't not put. I mean, I know it's not the standard in TypeScript, but that's so circular. Yeah, it just doesn't like the dynamic. Like even if I do true there. Yeah, this is Angular. Yeah, it doesn't like the dynamic set of that panel. Coldberg is Forge Gear, hosted freely to devs like GitHub, Microsoft. Yeah, I haven't looked into the other options. Git wise, I have no idea. There's GitHub. So this isn't the fact that it's circular anymore. This is just the fact that it doesn't like loading that in. I could maybe if I have the template there all the time, will it collapse? But that doesn't make sense. If it's there, it's there. Right, that's the same thing. Yeah. I don't want to load that conditionally. See, I mean, it already does it, right? It's not there the first time. And then after it is, it's there. So, prime the splitter collapse. P panel. You have a collapsed panel? Oh, that's a different thing though, right? That's that. That's toggleable though. Got to go. Have a good day. Hades, thank you very much for stopping on by. Have a great day. See you again soon. MG out of that. I doubt Prime faces as an answer, yeah. But I don't think panel's what I want either. Scroll panel. Oh, so I wonder if I can actually do it this way. Div class equals flag. And then instead of the ng templates, what we end up with, we just remove the template stuff. And then, actually, they're top levels. They actually probably should. Yeah, I'm gonna say they probably work that way anyway. So for anyone new to the stream, you're more than welcome to ask questions about what I'm doing, the technologies, anything like that. I'm happy to talk about the product. I'm building. As bad as it looks right this second. So if I do it that way, then if is detail loaded might actually work now. No. If class equals I just want to say I'm not. I know I'm way off on the in terms of archiving something. Yeah, I get it. It was a conversation back and forth. I just didn't join in there. Again, I don't have any opinions or thoughts on the entire. Phone just decided it was going to throw itself on the floor. On the entire ecosystem. Okay, so that's now not showing. Oh, because I've got the same problem, right? So when I click it, so I'm only loading the. That's not what I want to do. I want visibility. I don't want actual. How do I do this? That was the problem all along. I wasn't loading the component in to actually determine that was loading the component, so that was never working. I'm going to set visibility. Is it that simple? Hidden equals not is detail loaded. Problem is I want this to expand out, so I've got to figure out how to make this go full width. I'll worry about the panel side of it afterwards. So actually P panel. Oh, I'm almost, well, I'm over time. Header. That should work, actually. There you go. It looks a little rough. Yeah, no, that's not what I intend, but it's okay. It's not perfect. It's certainly not perfect, but it does. I think it's kind of closer to what I need to do. So again, here, what I'd do is I'd set padding. I want this flex to push out all the way over. It's kind of, what is that? Column collapse when hidden. Tailwind. grid. So if I do grid calls 2. That's what I mean. I host Katia on my home server, and I was thinking from GitHub to Katia. If GitHub goes away, it's very little effort to move elsewhere. And that's the beauty of Git, right? That's what I was saying before. Like, if I wanted to, setting up a multi-origin push would be, or a multi-remote, not multi-origin, multi-remote would be where I'd aim at. So I could, actually space. This is actually the repository, but it's synced. It's an actual clone of the repo, and it's actually got Git hooks, so it actually pulls from Git when I actually commit. So this is actually a JetBrains hosted. Yeah, Space is pivoted to Space Code, focused on Git hosting and code reviews. So they're changing this to Space Code, which, looking at that icon so far, isn't Apple going to sue them? Because it looks awfully familiar for an Apple logo. Yeah, so Space is going away. Yeah, no worries. Okay. So yeah, so right now this actually does clone to there. So I do actually have a remote copy of it, I suppose, by virtue of having that. Yeah. But anyway, it's 9:10. I do have to finish up. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to focus on what I want to do is I need to do ng class visible is detail loaded. Well, that looks a bit better. That's filling out at least the space, so I could actually lay out this column of data right now. So it's getting there. It's not perfect. Again, I could put this. I'm not sure I want the panels though, because I don't need the panels. Again, now I've just got a block up there, right? I've got this header for no reason, unless I can remove the header. This is my problem. I'm going to get hooked on doing this, and basic. Can you have it without a header though? Header. Use header icons. Deprecated since 15. Use header icons template. Okay, so I got to figure out that. I got to figure out how to collapse that or make a style. Yeah, I think the licensing discussion, the idea of what's more freely available, what's where the corporate lies. Like, I haven't seen any corporation use anything different. So yeah. But anyway, I got to raid out because I've got to get going. I've got a job to do. So let's go see who we're going to go see. No worries. I get it, Blob. I mean, again, it's the licensing discussion there is where I think you were going. The differences in licensing, meaning more or freely available. But anyway, let's go see Frank because it's Friday. Friday is Mr. Basheros, Mr. Basher. So F. Basheros he does cloud stuff normally. He's actually building like a game management thing for a series of books that he's got, which he's kind of into, which is good because that's energetic. There's a comment in case someone cares. No, I get it. I appreciate everyone's conversation today. This has been, I love these streams where people are able to talk and discuss things. It's why stream, right? So I'll be back on Monday and Tuesday. I will be doing some game dev still. That is the intention for the near future. So, I take a break from this heavier stuff, and I do some game dev on Mondays and Tuesdays right this second, with a little bit of other project stuff mixed in. I actually have something I might want to cover on Monday with the stream friendly project. So, I have a couple of GitHubs. TBD Friends is the stream project stuff. So there's a drink water project on there that we've kind of covered on past streams, and there's a lot of YouTube videos up for. So if you're interested in seeing that, you can look at that. But for right now, let's go raid Frank. Thank you very much for joining me. Thank you for hanging out. I appreciate it. And have a great weekend if I don't see you around Twitch today. So take care all. Bye.